Welcome to the chaos.
All right, we got this because I need to be looking.
You need to be looking like we can't do it that way. Like, all right, we're learning. We're still learning.
Okay,
There
we're
we
good.
go.
We're good.
We're good. Compose ourselves.
I'm impressed. Breathe.
All right.
What up, everybody, and welcome back to the chaos. I'm your host, Mikey Tailman, alongside.
Danny J. Gomez. That's me. You scared me. Danny J. Gomez. Hello. It's my first day here.
Obviously, we can see. Today on the chaos, we have former nightlife guru who is now doing something amazing in the world, spends her time and her money overseas in Africa, helping children in Uganda, building hospitals, schools. You just do everything.
A little bit of
A
everything.
little bit.
I know. I watched the video, man.
Miss Olivia Hansen.
Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
You are actually also one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I say that a lot, but you actually know.
Great.
Every other guest is like, "What? He told me the same thing, man."
Well, no, dude, like, I was in LA. I didn't know a single person. I got a job at a nightclub, and she was the first person I ever worked with and who was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hi, who are you? You're new. Let me help you." I'm like, "Oh, thank God."
Yes.
He was my busser.
Aw.
Yeah. And then years later, like, you know, she did festivals with me for a while, and now she's just off. She's a living saint, a living, breathing saint. So, but let's get
I hope I can live
With
up to
amazing
this.
style.
with
Damn,
amazing
goddamn.
style. We'll get to your sainthood in a minute, but let's just kick everybody off. Tell a little bit about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
yo, you're one of 11. That's wild.
11 kids. First off, thank you for having me. It's been really, really amazing watching your evolution, your metamorphosis, coming from a really
appreciate
dark
you.
place and now being able to give back and bring some light into that darkness. This is uncomfortable for me. I'm a private person. I have gotten off social media a few years ago, but it's really an honor to be part of, this journey in some small way. So thank you for having me.
We appreciate you.
Originally from Northern California, oldest of 11 kids. Grew up in a very musical household, and
Sounds like fun, though.
very loud, very fun.
So you guys had a whole band, like
A whole
11-piece
band, a whole soccer team, a whole
Yeah, exactly.
orchestra
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah, pretty manic child, bouncing off the walls, didn't sleep much, very creative, and I'll kind of just drop you right into a moment that really shifted my trajectory. I went from kind of a manic kid to super depressed out of nowhere at 11, 12 years old. And so I'm this emo scene kid. I'm sitting in my best friend's living room. We get our hands on this documentary called The Rough Cut by Invisible Children. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So Invisible Children is actually an organization, and they were focused on bringing awareness to the Lord's Resistance Army, the insurgency going on in northern Uganda. And this was back in early 2000s, right? And I watched this documentary and kind of turned it on, didn't know what I was getting myself into, and it completely changed my life. So
At 11.
this was at 14. Sorry. Yeah. Speeding up a little bit here. So 14, sitting there and was struggling with a lot of depression. And I watched this story about these children who were escaping from the Lord's Resistance Army, these crimes, horrific crimes against humanity, just raids on their villages every night, just really, really horrific things, right? And they were abducting the children that was basically filling their ranks. And this was really an unspoken war. Nobody really knew what was going on for 15, 20 years. So you have about, I think it was 20,000 kids at that point that had been abducted as soldiers, young 7-year-olds with, guns, and the girls being brought over as sex slaves. And I'm watching this just dumbfounded because, I had kind of a humanitarian background with my parents, but not seen this sort of tragedy, and been exposed to it. And the filmmakers follow, these kids who were coming from the bush, and they were hiding in this city called Gulu in northern Uganda just for safety overnight. They found these kids. There was, I think, 3 or 4 boys who were right around my age, maybe 12 to 15, somewhere in there. And they were hiding underground from the Lord's Resistance Army. They had been abducted. They escaped, and they were being hunted by name. They're in just this dank, wet, concrete kind of bunker, if you will, trying to do homework still by candlelight. And at first they kind of got daydreamy, and they're like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up, and it kind of resonated with that. And then they got real stoic because you can't show any emotion when you're in that, when they were abducted, right? So got really stoic, and they started talking about their experience, where they were at, and they're like, there's no one here to care for us. We have no one. It is better that you kill us. And my whole wait a minute, what? It is better that you kill us. The filmmakers go, you would rather die than experience what you're experiencing. They're like, 100% yes. And that just grabbed me deep inside my soul. And then they started talking about their brother who had been killed right in front of them. All of a sudden, that stoicism just breaks down. They start sobbing. And I will never forget how haunting that was. And this is a tattoo from that bus park where they were hiding out in Gulu, because that moment forever altered my life, because that's where I found purpose for the first time. Me sitting there as a depressed kid, not having judgment on that depression, but, I'm living here. I'm in a safe, loving, caring environment. Not to diminish the mental health aspect of it, but shifting into seeing those same feelings. Oh, I don't want to be here anymore, or I feel lonely. But seeing that in a kid on the other side of the world that has nothing, I immediately knew that I wanted my music, because I was in music and the arts, to somehow serve that purpose of bringing awareness and bringing change to that story. So I got very involved with that organization, Invisible Children. Eventually, that also is what led me to LA. So I dropped you right in on something heavy, but that, is really, really pivotal for the rest of my story and our conversation. I'll tell you why, because, this might be a little controversial, but when you're dealing with suicidal ideation, it really is where you're coiled into yourself. That's all you can see. That's all you can feel. You can't see other logic or emotions or truth or anyone else, really. So in a way, it is selfish, right? You're consumed within yourself and collapsing in on yourself. And what finding a purpose does is it kind of uncoils you back out to the light, to where you can actually put your life towards a greater goal outside of yourself. And so I'll continually go back to that as like, that is the antidote. And that moment, I think, saved my life at 14. So
that's what started the sainthood journey.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that seeing that, then slowly, like your depression, you did you figure out how to deal with it, or was it like lifted, or you just kind of like put yourself in their situation and try to be objective in their shoes and like be like, I don't have that. I'm just trying to figure
Yeah.
out how you got better mentally. If
I
you
mean,
did.
it has been a long, long journey. And I don't think there are any actual solutions that I was finding, or help, or true interventions, until much later on.
Right. At 14,
But I would say that what that did was drop kind of a guiding light
yeah.
into that darkness. So even though I wrestled with it and still wrestle with it, and probably didn't really find coping mechanisms until much later, every time I will go back and see that's what would pull me out, that kind of thread of light, and feeling that purpose outside of myself. So at that point, no, it wasn't really an intervention or anything. It's just kind of, it became this anchor that I'm really grateful for, that kept me probably from the darkest moments.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's great that you found that at that age, because there's so many kids nowadays that are
Kids
committing suicide. I mean, but like,
I'm just saying, like, finding yourself. Bro,
I'm just saying for that age
Yeah, oh,
range,
yeah.
who don't have an outlet and don't know who to talk to, and
I mean, suicide numbers when it comes to like information and statistics are starting at 9 years old.
Yeah.
9 years.
Yeah.
Because of how bad like social media is with bullying, and kids are committing suicide at 9, 10, 11 years old, which is wild.
And I mean, I do feel like it's tied in probably to this trend of, extreme narcissism.
Yeah.
And this is coming from, with all the empathy in the world, because I've been there, right? It's not me trying to judge anyone going through and say like, stop being selfish. It's like, it's coming from just understanding that experience, that transformative experience, when you can lift your eyes away from yourself and get your attention off of just yourself and your own world, and you being that center of the world, and actually just focus on serving something outside of yourself. And we've really lost that, especially with, like what you're saying with social media. It's very narcissistic and very.
We have zero empathy in this country.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just.
we've also gone really numb. I don't know if I would have the same reaction now as I did then, because we've kind of gotten this fire hose down our emotion, like fire hose down our throat with, feeling bad over
Every day.
everything going on
Something
in the
new.
world. Yeah, we didn't have as much exposure. So something like that was so shocking, at that time. And that is really sad to me as someone who is an advocate for refugees and displacement, that we've become pretty numb to it, and kind of nihilistic. But yeah.
And it seems like it's only trending into being more numb, and alcohol sales have gone up, cannabis sales have gone up. Like, I mean, it's so awful, but so many people we know in the nightlife industry in the last year or two since COVID came back have passed away because they're just like, people don't know what to do still. They're partying like crazy. There's all this fentanyl and all the drugs and everything now. Like, it's just so many people looking for a way to escape it instead of embrace it.
And I have those tendencies, right? Like that never leaves you. But I think when you make a choice at kind of a young age, or really whenever, if you make that choice, like, I'm going to serve something bigger than myself, it makes other choices for you, right? So it's like, for example, knowing this is what I want to be doing with the rest of my life, maybe I'm not going to party as hard or make these other choices that would derail me from that purpose. So it kind of saves you from your own self. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. But what triggers my mind is like, knowing all that, you still came here. You still got involved in this nightlife industry, which is intoxicating and so toxic for anybody. So like, how are you able to navigate that and still stay on this path that you're on? Because that doesn't sound like it was an easy juggle.
And also how you got into it. Like, what was the decision? Was it just an opportunity that popped up?
Yeah. So I'll kind of start there, right?
Yeah.
So I moved to LA for music. I was still pursuing music. I started out at SBE. This is circa
Cheers.
2000.
With our waters instead of tequila.
Actually, yep, here we go. Cheers,
Look at
y'all.
that.
That was being healthy.
Coping mechanism.
If this was 10 years ago at 9:45, that'd be 3 shots ripped.
I hope everybody watching this,
PM
took
and
a drink.
AM.
Yeah.
Being good examples, y'all, moved to LA, SBE, 2010, I'm going to say. Worked at Katsuya. So that was really the pregame for the Hollywood nightlife. You just saw the debauchery happen in that place, cleaning stuff up out of that back bathroom. Was pretty wild. So I kind of got exposed, to everyone, the nightlife managers, and I was working there for a while. It was really high energy. I loved that energy. And I broke up with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, in 2012, and I need to get on my feet. We kind of all moved out to this place in Whitley Heights we called Heartbreak Hotel. It was like all the servers kind of rotated in out of this one apartment building in Whitley Heights from Katsuya. So ended up on
the one on Franklin and Whitley.
Franklin and Whitley. Yeah.
Oh, I know that
Do
one
you know?
very well.
I've partied there before.
Yeah, Guillermo.
Yeah,
one of those.
that's why I've partied there.
Oh my god.
What up, G? Miss you.
Lived across from Mark
Sorry, I just
Hamill's
got
kid.
flashbacks.
That was interesting. Would walk to work and, with Jack Sparrow, a guy who dressed up as Jack Sparrow, and never a dull moment in that place at all.
Yeah.
But, I was on someone's, basically their couch and in the corner of their kitchen for a while. Bless your heart, Jenny, you saved my life. But really I needed to make more money, right? And so I'm seeing, the nightlife crowd, and then Sayers. I listened to your conversation with Miles and hands down agree. Sayers was the most magical, special. There's no place like it. There's no place like Rob, or no person like Rob. And we would get off from Katsuya, go to Sayers, and that got me thinking. I really kind of want to, get into this. So I want to say it was Jeff Rowe that I was harassing for a while, and finally they let me in, and they're like, "We're opening up Create." So
Jeff Rowe hired me too.
Yeah, for Create, right? So first night doing bottle service, I think it was New Year's Eve. Was that our opening night?
No, we didn't do New Year's Eve. We did the day before because we're like, we need to mock this because none of us have done this before. We're gonna try to open up for New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah, it was chaos. Like the rickety stage. It was.
We were there for like 3 years before. We actually built it. Like.
Yeah, that was an intense. That was intense. I think one of my first shifts, I'm there just picking up girls' hair off their, next while they're puking into garbage cans and picking up people's credit cards and just trying to. It was, but Mikey was my busser.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we really resonated because you are an authentic human. and that's rare to find. I didn't know how rare it was going to be, you know. I think when you start in restaurants, you have to be more genuine. People are going to pick up way quicker, you know. Like it's just a different breed, you know. So coming from that, I did have a genuine sense of I want to create an amazing guest experience, you know. And I'd put 100% into that, and I felt like you did too. It almost to a sadistic point where we
I just wanted
heart,
a job.
body, mind, and
I was
soul.
like, I need to keep this job, otherwise I gotta move back home.
There you go. Well, yeah, motivation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what got me in and create, and then shoot, I started picking up Greystone Sundays. I started working at Sayers during the week.
We
So
had to
I was
work
working
together,
like
'cause
4 or
probably.
5 venues
Yeah.
all at once.
I worked all like, I never did create. I think I did create one time
Okay.
just to fill in, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
send me back to Greystone.
Yeah.
We felt like
have,
that every night.
It's nice and cushy there, and like
Yeah.
I was spoiled.
Every place had its unique challenges.
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that was create, and then what really shifted for me? So I mean, I was still really focused on music and kind of just getting on my own 2 feet. So yeah, I was really sucked into the party. That was really when I was partying a lot. So that was 14, right? I don't even remember what 14 events I was working or raging at. Like it is a blur.
It's a blur.
It is a
I
total
have 3
blur.
or 4 years that packs into one blur.
Yeah, yeah. And I could walk everywhere, obviously, which is just horrible.
Yeah.
And when you're living in Hollywood. And but things shifted for me. I think it kind of another sort of, you know, the guiding light that kind of gets you before you get in too deep. When I first moved to LA, I met kind of who I call my soul sister, Lydia. She's from Uganda. She had been working with Invisible Children, so I met her at an event early on. So I'm kind of backtracking here. And she said, you know, I want to go back home. I want to start a nonprofit eventually. I said, I've been wanting to go to Uganda since I was a kid. Like, whenever you're ready, I'm there. So fast forward to 2014, on the beach in Newport somewhere. And she said, listen, I just found this article about this hospital in Uganda that's been operating without running water for over a year. Will you come and check it out with me? I'm like, yes, there, you know. And we start getting ready for this trip, and I'm just feeling intuitively, I have my own place at this point. I'm feeling intuitively like this is the start of something. You know, this isn't just a one-off trip. And I don't like this feeling of having to ask people for money to go on this trip. What do I do? I'm doing okay, you know, but I don't have the funds to be funding ongoing trips. And I'm kind of just meditating. I started getting into meditating, you know, at that time, and just kind of asked God. I was like, you know what? Just throw something out of left field, you know, so that I'll know it's my next move. And I was working Sayers that night, and Tommy Smith just walks right up to me and he goes, yeah, so I have an extra spot, or one last spot at the Sayers opening in Vegas. Do you want to come work for me? And I was like, that's left field if I ever heard it, because I hate Vegas. I'm not, I would never dream of moving to Vegas. And
Shout out to Tommy though, man.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome,
Legend. And yeah, so got on the flight to Uganda for the first time. I emailed, texted my like 5 different managers, and I was like, this is officially my 2 weeks. When I'm back, I'm moving to Vegas. So that probably, you know, kind of picked me up right where things were getting a little dark, and I was really getting sucked in, you know, and again, kind of just shifted my perspective and my purpose in why I was doing what I was doing. So then I diverted to Vegas.
You were shifting into a more depressive spot, and then you decided to move to Vegas?
Yeah.
That seems counterproductive.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like a lot of people, when they made that move, they were like, this change will help me.
No,
Yeah.
but you're talking about when everybody did it collectively, like when everyone wanted to go for the SLS, when they were
The
pushing
SLS
to go.
one, yeah.
She did it completely.
It was a different
Well, this
time,
was,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, this was the
It was
same time,
after.
though.
Oh, was it?
This was,
Oh,
this was
gotcha.
the opening. I was at, oh man, that was intense.
Yeah.
That opening. I can't even, Vegas is a different beast, you know? You're not closing down at 2 no more.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
they lost a lot of people like within the first week.
You know, going to Vegas, because I knew I want to get in, I want to buy a house, I want to get stable, I want to save money for the nonprofit. That I think was just enough to just keep the blinders on. And there was actually something about being out in the desert and being out of LA that cleared my mind in a really beautiful way. And so it was not easy. You know, I jumped from Sayers to Hyde, Bellagio, And then the things were just like, man, this is not what I expected. You know, they're unionized. So I worked some 14, but I was working the lounge. It was just misery.
And you can't drink out there, right? Like you get,
Man, no.
like you can't even pass the time. Your anxieties by like
Yeah.
taking a couple shots.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. So then Cherie called me. Cherie Salazar. Well, she was Cherie Salazar, the legend, the one and only. And she was like, hey, come work at Encore Beach Club. I was like, work in a bikini during the day at a pool? I mean, it's just a very foreign idea to me, you know, after working in the seedy sort of, you know, dark LA clubs. And it's like, you know what, just give it a shot. So I did, got into Encore Beach Club, and that was amazing. Even just shifting into a daytime atmosphere, an open air atmosphere, was really, really, really good for me. And of course, you can drink there, right? So it kind of.
Oh, okay.
No, not even a sip of champagne. Night and day from Marquis.
Yeah.
Very different. So it was just kind of like the bipolarism of nightlife itself. You know, there's the benefit of, at least for a minute, having a healthier schedule. You know, you're working during the day. But at the same time, it kind of dusted off some old demons of body dysmorphia. And eating disorders, because man, Vegas, your self-worth, you know, it is almost literally tied to your appearance, you know, like to get to that bar, right, of physical appearance, that's tied into exactly what venue you're going to be working at, how much money you're going to be making. So that was that was really, really, really difficult. You know, I put myself through hell. But at the same time, you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, the people that I met there, I met, you know, some of our favorite clients there. That's where it all started, you know, and being able to spend time with people from, you know, 10, 11 a.m. all day long. That's a whole different environment than your typical nightclub, you know, and these people have become friends and eventually donors and supporters of my work. And you know, day in the life, I guess, because I decided to go back to school. So out there, I decided to go back to school. I was listening to this BBC podcast, and there was they were interviewing this Yazidi woman who was running away from ISIS. And this is kind of before it really broke on mainstream media out here. So I was really gripped by the story, and listening to her flashed me back to that kid, Jacob, right, in Invisible Children. It was almost an out-of-body experience listening to this woman. And I called out of work that night, and I was like, you know what? There are only 2 times in my life I've been moved this deeply listening to this sort of story. I've obviously been running from something. I've been running from a purpose here. Like, what do I do with this? How deeply moved I am. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. I want to work with refugees. So decided to go back to school. But what that did was keep me out of a lot of trouble, right? Because, you know, day or week in the life is, you know, I'm at school all week. Friday, 5 a.m., I'm working out, I'm studying, I'm going to beach club in the morning, getting off maybe 7 p.m. A lot of time you're changing, you're turning right around, you're going to go work Encore Beach Club at night, you're going to do it again the next day. Sunday, excess night swim. It's just back to back to back to back, and then roll 30 minutes, sleep in my car, exams, you know, Monday morning. So it was an intense hustle, you know, but some of my favorite memories, you know, from that time, like one of these side gigs that you pick up during the week. I was hired by John Bon Jovi to have body paint for one of his rosé launch, his Hampton Water launch. So that was an intense and fun experience that I'll never forget. You know, I'm you know, sitting
Straight
there.
Body paint.
Okay, let me paint the scene a little better here. So,
don't judge me.
2 p.m. Yeah, 2 p.m. on a weekday. You know, there's this diver that's on the rosé bottle. She's in this black swimsuit, bun up, nothing else. So I had a bun up, painted black swimsuit, and basically nothing else. But it's 2 p.m., 35, 40-year-olds, conservative group, John Bon Jovi, let's just say the nipple cover thing wasn't working out very well. And it was probably the most awkward 2 hours of my life, but also the most crazy opportunity. So in Vegas, that's where you're never going to run into situations like that ever again. It was pretty wild. So yeah, that's kind of my typical grind, when I was in Vegas.
That's yeah. So like, I mean, we didn't do the thing of having something else to balance us out like she did.
I mean, acting was supposed to be that.
Nah, we said the same thing, but she had something like legitimate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even when I had auditions, I still couldn't
wasn't-
bring myself to be
Yo, I give you a lot of
responsible.
credit. Like
Yeah.
that level of discipline is insane. Because I mean, what were you still in your mid-20s at this point, early 30s?
Yeah.
Like everything's in front of you.
Yeah.
You're working in the best club there is, making a ton of money. You could have went off the rails and did whatever you wanted.
Yeah. That's why I don't credit to myself, I really credit to having that higher purpose that just pulls you through, even when you're on the edge there.
But you still have to meet that higher purpose, and you still have to do the work. Like, I don't know anybody else that was working in the day club all day, waking up at 5 a.m. studying, working the nightclub, and then going to school.
Yeah.
Like, even when we were doing festivals, you'd be studying like on the deck while music's playing. She's sitting there with a book. I'm like,
Damn.
Oh yeah. Sorry to all the bosses. I would be in the cabanas, with my little check presenter trying to study.
Yes.
like, I mean, I saw that. I'm like, yo, that's awesome. Like, you're really like, I get it. You make really good money. You're using that to funnel everything else. So it's like, why wouldn't we support you on that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was a very, very intense time. Really put my body through hell. But I mean, yeah, it was lonely, but sometimes the best road is a lonely road, like often, actually, I'm going to say.
I think most successful road is a lonely road.
Yeah. And, I kind of made a decision early on that I was going to try to create some deep friendships in Vegas. It's so transient, and don't get me wrong, I met amazing people and really supportive people, and I have everywhere I've gone. But overall, as a trend, it's so shallow, it's so transient, it's so artificial, and I just kind of kept that in mind, So my studying and my nonprofit work, because I was still doing that stuff, in Uganda through that time, those are really my close companions. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this then, because it's not that easy, like, this is your purpose, but you also have passions.
Yeah.
So music is a passion of yours. Poetry is a passion of yours. How are you able, because I mean, that's what gives a lot of people life, especially you. So how are you able to incorporate that in this insanely massive, crazy schedule you already have?
I didn't. That's what got me suffocating until even just recently. Because I actually was getting into the DJ scene. I was really committed to that. And I had to make a choice when I left LA. I was really just about to really get on the scene and get serious about it. And I was like, either I stay in LA and I pursue this, which is something I love, or I move to Vegas and I commit myself to that life and school and all of that. And both of those couldn't coexist. But I felt that suffocating me every single day. If you look back on my task list or my schedule or my, goals for 4 or 5 years straight, every day it's right, pull out your guitar again, did it, because deep down as a creative, like, you need to be creating to that's oxygen, and I didn't have that. So that's something that I'm just starting to reincorporate. And yeah, I felt very unbalanced because of that.
So you said earlier on, though, that you were manic depressive as a child. That doesn't go away as you get older.
Mm-mm.
So how much of not being able to follow those passions and in that, feeling suffocated added to your depressive states?
Pretty heavily. Yeah. I would still kind of write, through those dark times. But definitely I wasn't creating anything. So that's an interesting question. Yeah, I definitely felt like there was something missing. And it continued to be a goal of mine. So I felt like, okay, if it's still a goal of mine, I haven't given up on it entirely, right? But there's this underlying just agitation that you're not achieving it. You're not
it's a
committing
goal,
to
but
it.
you're not actually
You're not doing it.
like,
So I would say that was, if I can kind of describe it, it's like you feel somewhat stable. You know, been on medication for a long time now, and you feel stable. You have these other coping mechanisms, and you feel like everything is put together, but there's something that's still kind of shaky underneath you. You know, something that is agitating. And so it's only actually recently, maybe we can kind of get into this when I talk about kind of my current career. It's only when I got into a stable schedule that I could actually start creating again.
Yes.
And you don't, okay, maybe I'll just jump in now, right?
Go
So what I'm doing now is post 2020, after I graduated UCLA, I thought I was going to right away be either jumping into a brick and mortar MBA on the East Coast or working internationally. And obviously the whole world came to a screeching halt. And that was a very, very dark period of mine. Kind of get into that later, but fast forward to the end of 2021, and I went, you know what, I really want experience in the private sector before I get back out into the public sector. And what I'm going to be doing overseas is most similar to like infrastructure, construction, IT here. So I actually got hired on as a project manager for Otis Elevator. Very corporate, you know, massive company. It was the first time in my life I've had even just the potential of I can actually go to bed at the same time every day and wake up at the same time every day. This is wild. It felt like luxurious. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This is wild. I've never had this before, ever. So,
like?
I don't know what we're talking
what?
about. No, I'm with you though. Like schedule
Yeah.
is so important. When I don't have something to do and I have too much time,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, I want to work on it. I know I got to work on this. Okay, I'm just gonna sit down and watch TV.
Yeah.
You know, I just
Yeah.
Happens to me all the time.
You know?
every day,
Well, the
every day.
structure, you know,
Structure,
and we
yes.
think as creatives, we need the chaos, and we do.
No pun intended.
Yeah. There you go. Control the chaos. We do to create and start that process, but to actually transform that into a deliverable, you know, into the world and a productive output of that creativity, you do need that discipline and that order and that offset from the chaos. And so it is only as of the last couple of years that I've actually had that framework to even allow me to start building back up that creative that output. So I didn't even get it until I was out of that world. Oh yeah, that's probably partly why you couldn't buckle down and really write anything and create anything, because you had no idea, am I going to sleep 30 minutes today, an hour, 4 hours? Where am I going to be traveling overseas? Am I even going to be in my own bed? Like that turbulence is just it's a nightmare when you actually want to put something out. So
it's hard to be creative when you have so many outside forces pulling at your brain juice.
Yeah.
You know, your brain power.
Yeah.
It's the last thing you want to do, because creating is such a lonely experience.
Yeah.
Writing a song or writing a script or rehearsing a monologue, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have other people, but still it comes down to you having to learn it. And you have to be really focused.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of that brain power to do that creative thing.
Yeah. And I think you also have to, you know, I don't know, there's this balance. You have to be not okay with yourself, but also okay with yourself. You know, I was really warring with a lot of self-loathing, kind of going back to that body dysmorphia, right? And the self-worth aspect and just that rat race of perfectionism. That's a kryptonite, you know, to the creative process. So that was kind of in the background as well.
It's a constant thing that's always tugging at you.
Yeah.
All the time. So now, past 2021, we're at now, but you've been to Uganda multiple times, though. Correct. Working with multiple different nonprofit foundations and organizations, correct?
Yeah. So kind of where things really shifted, I got into UCLA, so I moved back to LA from Vegas in 2018. And, you know, at that point, Love a Community, the programs that we had been doing were kind of for a lot of different reasons, kind of tapering off, right? And Lydia and I were both at university. It was kind of an insane time. But I was granted the Global Citizens Fellowship. I was really involved in the Global Development Lab at UCLA. Had the opportunity and funding and support to basically launch my own initiative. And I said, well, I'm not going to just do something random. This is a community that I love, that I've been, working in already. So whatever I do, I want it to support them. So, and it 2018, and this is when I called you and I was like, hey, I'm back in LA. I need work. He's like, oh, come work festivals. I'm like, what? So I think Escape was my first festival, 2018. And that was amazing. Just caveat, people talk about work family or cultivating this environment. I've never seen that truly happen except for with what you created with the Skydeck.
Thanks.
That was a true family unit, and that was amazing to be a part of and perfect for when you're trying to finish up at school. And you're like, all right, I'm going to bust my ass for a couple weekends, and then the rest of the time be able to focus. So that was very, very helpful, and it was amazing reconnecting, with a lot of the clients, with friends. So that was really good. So right around that whole time that I got into festivals, I was starting out this new initiative, and I was talking to people in Uganda and asking, what do you really need? And again, this is with the hospital, right? So it's this hospital that serves almost 500,000 people in rural Uganda. And so it has an amazing reach for whatever you do there. And they were like, we need the internet. We need internet access. And I was taking that back to, people at UCLA, and they're going, that's a luxury item, basically, focus on the basics. And I'm like, what? I'm actually going to just listen to what the beneficiaries are telling me that they need. And we're going to do this. So in 2019, I lived over there. I was also doing research with South Sudanese refugees and then research in the Middle East, kind of all in the same basket. But we implemented a Wi-Fi infrastructure project and digital literacy training at that hospital. It was a pilot project at that point. We called it KumiKonnect. And I was unsure at the time, is this kind of just superfluous, is this kind of a luxury? Like, how much benefit is this really going to have? Fast forward to 2020, and when COVID hit, I was getting weekly updates with them saying the only reason we're able to cope with this right now and have access to the resources we need and these meetings and everything and just information is because of the internet. And that really firmly rooted, okay, this is a good thing. We're going to continue with this. So
I watched the Vimeo video that you sent me, and Danny watched it, Sophia, Zeke watched it, and there was something that stuck out. So it was showing the hospital, and there was 500 to 700 people that would show up a day, and 70 to 100 couldn't get in there. But the number that was so staggering was that it was $3,000 American would help the hospital for a whole month,
and 2 doctors,
the budget,
and for 2 doctors. Yeah. That's insane. So it's only if somebody gave if somebody wanted to sponsor and gave 5 or 10,000, they can literally help a hospital run for 3 to 4 months there.
Yeah.
Dude, we have all these billionaires people here that have all this money, and you can literally save thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
Flying to space and
Yo, I mean, I'm sorry, not even flying to space, and I'm not trying to on what makes my life money,
right.
But I watch these people come to the festival and throw 30,000 on it. We'll take champagne and spray it on people, dump it on people, and it's it aggravates me because we're in the same as an empath. Yo, man, this is a human being. It's a human fucking life. You are no different than this person just because you have a bunch of money.
Right.
No, it's just that's insane.
Just
That's mind blowing to me. That number.
Just not having access to water. We can go to the sink and pour a glass of water.
Right.
We take that for granted, man. We don't even want to drink the sink water. You know what I'm saying? That's how up our
and these
views
people are walking to wells, getting water that is dirty water, and using that trying to, I saw in the video they were trying to clean their utensils.
Yeah.
And if you can't clean it properly, you're going to give infection to everybody.
Yeah.
And they weren't taking their medication, right? Because they didn't have something to drink it with, right?
Then the power went out, and they were using
to deliver babies. Watching that in person is wild. Because I've been, out there during many power outages, and nurses, stick a Nokia cell phone in their mouth and they're trying to deliver babies and stuff.
For the light, yeah.
Meanwhile, you go to a hospital here and I sit and talk to a doctor for 2 minutes and it costs me $3,000.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a few things there, right? That was part of the reason why I really stuck in the industry, because the people I'm getting exposed to and meeting, these are the kind of people that I want to loop into what they can actually be doing, for a better purpose than what they're doing. And also the money I'm making, that's going directly. I am paying for, a surgeon's medical degree right now because he's going to be going back to that hospital, right? So knowing that at least I'm doing something better too with the money that I'm making in these places, that's also part of the driving factor that I was in it for so long, right? So, but going back to kind of, okay, $3,000, you can support this hospital. So my degree is in international development. So I'm very much an advocate of how can we invest in the solutions that they can maintain themselves, right? Because we think, oh, if we just send a bunch of money over there, it'll fix these sort of issues. But that's we've seen a lot of more harm than good in those scenarios. So I'm moving slowly in this space and really trying to have a firm foundation for this new initiative and in IT. To make sure that whatever solutions we're bringing, the community is really adopting, the hospital is adopting, and they can run with it themselves. The goal is that you should be able to step out and they should be able to carry on, right? And that's not the typical charity approach. It's kind of like if you pulled your funding, if you pulled, your Americans, or your Westerners that are working there, everything would collapse. Well, you're not doing it right then. You're not. Either you're going too fast because you want the ego boost, right? Oh, all these wells in 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going around testing them and they're all shit, literally. So moving slow, doing things right, doing things ethically, doing things with a mindset of empowerment and sustainability and not just, quick fixes or just what will make you feel better. Yeah, that's close to my heart for sure.
Like it's investing in the community. What is it like? Teach a man to feed a man a fish or whatever it is. One day, teach a man how to fish, he'll eat forever.
Yeah,
like
and that's
that
really
makes
amazing.
A ton of sense. Like
that's the amazing thing about stepping into the IT space because before, we weren't really touching that. We were dealing with water, the kind of sustainable farming initiative, the electricity, solar, those things. So I'm really excited. I can't share too much yet, but I did have to basically come out from under the umbrella of Love a Community for a variety of reasons. So KumiKonnect doesn't have its own 501c3, and I'm in the process of either, kind of founding that or coming under the umbrella of another organization. Maybe when this airs, I can mention it. But that is already an NGO, which is really big deal, in Uganda that's been doing this for years. And like what you're saying, just them teaching digital literacy and through these Microsoft training programs and what that is given back to the community, how many women and girls are being able to start their own businesses. And then they go on and they teach people. It's amazing how far you almost can't quantify the reach that you can have when you put those tools in their hands, right? And so the other element to this that kind of loops in my passion for mental health is I was doing research with South Sudanese refugees, near the South Sudan border in 2019, and I was shook because it shifted my entire paradigm when it comes to supporting women and girls and reducing gender-based violence. Because I went in going, all right, I want to see how men and boys can support these efforts in the refugee communities. And what the women and girls were telling me, this is not, everywhere, this is very contextual. They were saying, you need to help our men and boys. You want to help us? You need to help them with their mental health and their trauma. And there was just nothing for them because there's a bias from much good reason towards helping women and girls. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking, man, how can we also bring IT, and IT initiatives into these refugee communities and these refugee host communities. And so I'd love to see how we can have IT projects that bring remote learning to girls who can't be in school, but also like male youth mentorship programs that are, based online. So that's all kind of in my vision in the future as we really get going again. I just got back from Uganda in January, so things are in motion now. They were kind of on a, just maintaining things for a while, and now we're actually there's a lot of forward movement, so I'm really excited.
That's kind of crazy to me with the cultural aspect of men, you got to be tough. Even on the other side of the world, that's still a cultural stigma, and like all these women are like, no, you need to help them because they can, like, that's fucking
I mean, I think
wild.
that's got to be heightened in that part of the
Even
world.
yeah,
Like,
even more so.
you have to learn how to survive as a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's
In a
almost
violent-
equal
You
sexual
don't get
violence.
to be, you don't
Right.
have the ability to be emotional because that, yeah, like,
Yeah, and there's almost equal sexual violence in that particular context in South Sudan against men and boys as there is against women and girls. So you go, okay, well, everyone has this tremendous trauma, you know, and they're already, you know, what happens when guys are completely emasculated? You know, how
You lash out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anger.
yeah. So if there's no resources that are really addressing that sort of thing, and then you're just basically ripe for another Joseph Kony, Lord Resistance Army insurgency. You know, we see what happens with ISIS. It's kind of that same. We see it happen with gangs here. What happens when there's no anchor for the male youth? You know, no purpose, right? It's a dangerous situation. So definitely a lot of definitely passionate about that and what we can do to expand, you know, IT for development into those spaces as well. So
You're a saint.
yeah.
Like a
I'm-
walking, living saint.
I know. I'm just like, I'm so, like, just honored to be sitting with you, and it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. Like, I became disabled in 2016. I'm like, when was it? Yeah. And I didn't know anything about the community, but when I did find out, I was like, this is the most beautiful community of people. Like, I'm so proud to be part of this community, but we need help. We're always like looked at, you know, we're never included. We're always last in everything as far as inclusion. So I found my purpose that way. I thought it was like, I'm going to be this, this creative actor, do that stuff. But I'm like, no, I want to help people because that makes me feel good. Like, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Helping others who don't have a voice.
Yeah. Well, and everyone is on their own journey, right? I mean, even through this in 2020, I completely lost purpose, right? I came out of a lot of momentum from being overseas in 2019, starting this project, you know, about to leave UCLA, and then everything that happened in 2020. And everyone obviously was on a crazy journey that year, but I lost vision. I went into the darkest space I'd been in since my early teens. I could barely function. And so, yeah, you're like, oh, you're a saint. You know, like, no. It completely turned me back in on myself. I was only absorbed with my own self and my pain for that time.
I mean, I think every saint that exists goes through a tremendous struggle and helps other people. That's why they're called saints.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Go through it.
that's exactly, you know what I mean? But during that
Yeah.
time, then, how did you... So did you... I mean, I'm assuming that you had to really jump into your passion because you couldn't work on your purpose. So what did you do to kind of pick yourself out through that 2020 pandemic time when you got into those really depressive phases?
So I would say I really was pulled out by people close to me, by people I love, you know, reminding me of what my purpose was. I'd really, really forgotten. I was really in a haze. I was doing a bunch of writing, but I was also getting super confused because I was, you know, kind of getting into the cultural, you know, all the craziness that year, right? And I was really wanting to put stuff out into the world, but feeling scared, you know, feeling like maybe I had a different narrative than what people were talking about. I was distracted by that. So as far as your passion, you know, and writing and creative, that almost confused me more. You know, that was almost messier.
That had to be really tough.
Oh yeah, there was just no outlet whatsoever, and I just felt completely useless, complete waste of space. And I really, really credit, you know, my fiance Justin, my family. You know, those people. You need those people who can remind you who you are. You know, not how you seem today, not where you are today, but where you were going. Where is the road? Because I cannot see it. And sometimes you cannot find your way back by yourself. So I am extremely blessed to be very close to my parents, have a couple very close friends. My friend group's pretty freaking small. When I met up with you, was that 2020?
Yeah, it was probably toward the end
Late
of 2020. Yeah.
I was still deep.
I know, we talked about it.
But also hearing your journey out, that's another thing that pulled me out, right? It's like you need those people that are around you that'll be echoes, you know, in the darkness if you can't see. oh yeah, ping off me, like bring me back to the light, you know. So that's really the only credit I have there. And then through that, I started working at Otis at the end of 2021, and that's really kind of where I got out, I would say. So it was a long stretch for sure. But
Wow. Just, I mean, I guess not big picture, but end goal. I mean, not even end goal, wish list. Like,
yeah,
what does it look like?
yeah.
Like what changing, like saving so many people in Uganda. Like, what is at the end of it that you're gonna be like, I lived out my purpose? What does that look like?
That's a very big question. So legacy means a lot to me, you know, and I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I think everybody thinks this is the legacy I want to leave, but probably never is exactly what you're going to be up to. I really want to be able to look back and say that I helped transform lives and inspire people. That's very, very general, right? And from an egotistical perspective, it's like, what's the biggest impact I can make on the world? You know, that's how I always felt before. But once you actually meet with people where they are one-on-one and you see one life transformed, you go, that's enough. Just that one is so enough. And people are going to be called to different places and populations and, you know, topics. But for me, I go back to what first grabbed me when I was 14. And these children, those who are alone, who are oppressed, who are displaced. And if I can live my life in service of better policy, better solutions, for those groups, and providing dignity and inspiration and a future for these groups, specifically displaced and refugee populations, then I will say, like, I've left my mark on the world that I wanted to. And so big picture, 2023, here we are, and I actually have a kind of hot off the press. I just signed an offer for a position in Nashville.
Aww.
So I just got promoted to be an account executive for Otis in Nashville.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and be their lead project manager while we build up the team. And it's really huge. It's really exciting. I have not processed that I'm leaving California at all.
Hey, it's cool. It's called Otis Elevator, right?
Yeah.
Am I dumb, or is it like more than elevators? Like, I don't know.
Elevators and escalators.
Oh, it's
yeah.
Okay, so it really is that.
Yeah, it's very niche.
Like,
yeah.
some companies are like
speakeasy.
Yeah, right. Like what? Like, is it like, you know, like Stark Industries? You know, they're doing other. You know what I mean?
I mean,
sometimes
that's
businesses,
a comparison.
sometimes
sure.
businesses have like a name. They like do something completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Nope. It's straight up.
Elevating
It's
people
straight up. Yeah. Ooh, that's good actually.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe I should write
Literally
something
and
off
figuratively.
of that.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah. No,
We
you're.
know what we're talking about.
You're right.
So what are you gonna be doing there?
Yeah. So it's for Nashville's booming. You're good.
They need
Can you
elevators.
write something
I
about that
love
for
you.
me?
Yo,
Some
elevators.
tagline about Otis Elevator.
An
like
elevator
the
pitch for
elevator.
Otis
You know how important an elevator is to a person
Please
in a wheelchair?
go on. There's-
One that works.
yeah.
I lived in a building here in North in Van Nuys where the elevator every 2 weeks would go out for 3 days.
No
I would
way.
literally have to crawl up 5 flights of stairs like this. My
Whoa.
triceps are huge now. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah, I know it's important.
they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Call them. Call Otis.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't see myself there forever, right?
I'm sorry. It's
You're
fine.
good. You're
We gotta
good.
throw these.
You're good.
I gotta throw my dumb sometimes. But
I'm actually inspired. I'm like thinking in the back of my mind, like, no, how can I write about this? This is good. You know, elevating people to the next level. Like,
dude,
it's, yeah,
that's
anyways,
it.
It's good. But I'm learning a ton. It's super challenging, running really big budgets, but I eventually want to use that experience to pivot to, you know, directing international development programs. So that's kind of the
long-term goal?
The long-term goal. I'm getting married in June. A lot going on this year. I would say
Yes.
that relationship is the biggest achievement of my life, hands down. I think people give up too easy. It's been a long road, and it'll be a victory lap for sure. I'm getting married in a castle in Italy. It'll be amazing. Yeah, it'll be epic.
You and your fiance been on, like, not on and off, but
Yeah,
back and
no,
forth
on
like
and
the
off.
last,
Yeah.
for the last 10, 11 years?
Yeah, and he's been an anchor for me, and I think, I mean, in return, you're patient with the growth of that individual and their transformation, and so yeah, I'm very excited. And that's my next year. Moving to Nashville, launching kind of everything new that I'm doing with KumiKonnect, and getting married.
I thought I juggle a lot.
You do.
Yeah.
You definitely do. though.
You
And
definitely do.
You are also
Like,
a saint,
don't
my
discount
friend.
this. Yeah, 100%.
It looks like you were doing work in 2020, bro.
I mean, we all were.
Calling out to just reaching out. You were like, it's like you had a calling. Like, I need to call this person. Like,
Yeah.
randomly call me. You know.
I like to call people. I like
Yeah.
that. I like conversation.
Yeah.
I think we have a show.
Yeah.
Like, let me figure out the best way to get out of nightlife
Yeah.
where I can talk to people.
Yeah.
And
How
I
about
don't
you?
have to
I
talk
want to
to
know.
them.
I want to know your answer to that question. What is your big vision? And
My
goal?
big vision?
Yeah.
A mind's pursuit to be a massive corporation.
Mm.
To have it where there's different aspects of it that all tie in. So there is the event side where I continue to throw alchemies. I'm doing another alchemy event.
Yeah.
I want I want to have books, my little Mikey concept of little Mikey in the world, teaching kids how to deal with anxiety, depression at a younger feet. A media side, this aspect of it,
Yeah.
and then obviously I have the poetry EP that I'm currently working on. And she was actually, when I started doing poetry, she was the first person I called because I'm like, even if it sucks, she won't make fun of me and be mean to me about it.
You didn't see the faces I was making, so it's
Yeah.
all good.
I mean, hey, either way, whatever you said worked because here I am.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was amazing to hear you pop up with that, and that re-inspired me.
Hey.
So yeah, I mean, I did spoken word when I was between 13 and 20, let's say, right in there. And in NorCal, that's where the Jabberwockies started out. David Garibaldi, that performance painter. I actually lived with his parents for quite a while, so really cut my hair, like loved their family, so really got immersed with them. And he was a huge inspiration for me as well. And just, in his own trajectory coming out of a pretty, dark spot. And then, again, purpose, he was very focused on giving back and being an inspiration for people, and that I think that really fueled his rise. So yeah, we would put on these live events, we'd have art, dance, music, poetry. And I miss that. Those were some really beautiful times. So we should definitely
collab.
collab.
I mean, I've told you how I want to take the alchemy events,
Yeah.
and I'm actually working on with somebody who's been on the show, AJ Gerard. We're working on a bigger event incorporating poetry, art, music, and then just the collaboration. Because we know, like right now, if we're going to make the world a better place, we have to create a movement. And what's the better way to create a movement than bringing people together through the arts? Because that's what most people's passions are, and that's what helps you find your purpose.
And I think you can kind of level up some inclusivity there, right? Because right now we're so ideologically divided and things are so heated and polarized that art tends to be kind of where you still find beauty in the gray zone, right? You still, somehow part of us, even if we'll get into these heated debates when it's just our normal life, art, we're more receptive of like, oh yeah, there's nuance here, right?
Yeah.
Like things aren't as straightforward. There's a lot of beauty and vibrancy and kind of where it's unclear and even unspoken and even a contradiction or something that confronts me. We're more receptive to it. So I think there's a really important place for art to play in bringing people together on a pretty deep level, especially in this country.
Yeah, and
So,
like you said, bringing people together. Everybody is so damn divided at this point, and like if we break it down to it, every single person is a human being having a spiritual being having a human experience at this point in life, and doesn't matter what race, religion, anything like that. Currently, the collective, everybody is struggling with something.
Yeah.
That is the one thing everybody has in common right now that is becoming more and more talked about. Life is hard. The world is so what's the best way to come together? It's like, oh wait, I feel like you feel like too? Well, maybe if we all feel like together, we could figure out a way to not feel like You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Come
Like,
up with some
create,
solutions,
like
Janet.
that was the whole concept of the
Yeah.
alchemy, is creating
Yeah.
a safe space so people can come in and share what they're feeling,
Yeah.
and then you create a movement. You're like, oh, we are way more like-minded, even though we don't do the same thing. We look completely different. We
Right.
follow different religions, but it's
Right.
like there is something we can connect on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's that
Definitely.
empathy that we're missing in this
Yeah.
world.
I feel like you're reading some of what I had written down. But,
Well,
Speaking of that.
speaking of that, I love conversations that flow so quickly where you're like, it's been an hour already?
Yeah.
Oh, it
Like,
has already?
It's
No
been
way.
it's been an hour already that we're having this conversation because you were just like
And I
letting
still
us
have
know.
all my crazy stories I didn't. Okay, we'll have to do a round.
We're
two.
gonna do a part
Let's
two,
Yeah,
see.
especially when
yeah.
you come back from more things.
I mean, I got
where
in a
could you follow?
champagne war with LeBron James and didn't know who he was. You know,
Okay.
it's crazy stuff. I mean,
Who's that
I'm
guy?
coming back. Yeah. I'm sports illiterate, obviously. So.
Let's have him on the show. Let's call him up. Do you know this guy?
I was like, you're paying for my spray tan. He never paid for my spray tan. So.
Oh, well, we have to have a whole other episode just
Mm.
about the crazy you did in your nightlife days. But right now, we wanted to focus on, I mean,
Some mature stuff.
what we're doing this podcast for is to help people and inspire people. And I think you've given so many things for people to emulate, and that you've definitely inspired. I mean, I'm inspired.
Cool.
Yes. I was already like thinking about not hitting my mic. I was already thinking about these projects that like they're always on the back of my mind. They're always there and like, dude, write this. Like it's there. Just it's so scary sometimes.
It is scary. And this, I'm going through a really crazy breakthrough in my life in general on all fronts right now that I would say is only because I kind of started saying yes to things that scared the shit out of me. Even coming here. Do you know how many times I almost canceled on you? So I was like, I don't want to be on the
Well, we're
camera.
very glad
I don't
you
want to
didn't.
be like, you know what I mean? And you just, but there's such good, potent things that come out of those specific things that you want to say no to and that you're afraid of. And so
Look how much fun we had.
yeah, I know it's
know,
been a
you were awesome.
blast.
So before we get you out of there, there's the two things that we really want to touch on because again, you inspiring so many people. What are some of the what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned through this journey, and what's the thing that you are one of the things you're the most grateful for?
I'm gonna start with the grateful for, and then the lessons learned is kind of what I was writing down.
Okay,
Right.
start with the grateful for.
Grateful for the journey of self-discovery being completely broken down and having to put yourself back together that I don't think I would have gone through if it hadn't been for the nightlife journey. You experience such extremes, right? You see the darkest side of humanity. You know, you see greed, terrorist threats, sexual violence, addiction. On the flip side, you see joy and ecstasy and creativity and generosity. Celebration. Oh my God, the first festival that we did after 2020, I think it was Hard Summer, right?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure.
No, there was something. Might have been hard. I don't remember. It's
I remember looking out at the crowd, and it was when things were so intensely polarized, and just going, there's none of that here. Like, it doesn't matter who the fuck you are or what you believe in or what side of the aisle you're on. Look at everyone in this space just absolutely living in this moment. And that has been a really huge gift that I didn't realize until that was taken away in 2020. I didn't understand, because I'd always complain about, oh my God, these, it's killing me. Like these festivals is crazy. It's grueling. I didn't understand that it was an antidote to my own darkness, being in that environment and seeing that joy. So, and feeling that energy, right? So I would say I'm tremendously grateful for just, how do you even quantify that? Just experiencing, specifically in the festival environment, that mass of humanity and that visualization right in front of you of unity, so that was,
Antidote to the darkness, bro.
Yeah.
I like that.
Lessons.
Great.
I wrote this like 3 a.m. today, and I was like, no, don't do it. I don't even know what it sounds like, but I really feel like I want to put it out there.
We want to hear it.
Bear
Bring it
with
in.
me.
Bring it in.
I haven't read it out loud. We'll see how this goes. All right.
Is this like a new poem or just?
It was a flow of consciousness off of
Love
your
flows of-
off
love
of your
it.
prompt, and it kind of just I was
Love
like,
flows
here we go.
Love flows of consciousness.
It's called Back of House. Back of house, pre-shift, clock in, check out. What do I need to get through this? Learn to take a shot without showing it on my face without a chaser, because that's the only way I'm going to get through this. Pre-shift, and I shift into that state, that other face, that real big smile, shape shift. Front of house. 10 p.m. vibe, come alive, that's where I can hide. Check the mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest one of all? Doesn't matter, because I'm not here at all. Doesn't that question imply there's a reflection? Like the nightclub walls, like the two-way glass during this interrogation of my mind. Do I really love those eyes on me, that rush? Or is it just a momentary hush? That gaze, settling into all the ways I'm going to feel invisible when I walk out of this place. But oh, sometimes I get a good feeling, and then that feeling has no meaning when it relies on believing in my altered identity. But this doubt is only lipstick deep. The minute the music comes on, the minute I hear that beat, I am the party. Welcome to the fantasy. You've been fantasizing about tonight? Me too, sweetie. Because I just don't want to think about what's really happening to me, like how I've lost my time, my dreams are past embodied. Better here where busters drive Bentleys. Better than the reality. Back of house. It's all artificial. I've officially lost myself, and this labyrinth that pays well left me a shell, and what I thought I believed was true is all blown to hell. Decency, humanity, balance, and sobriety, creativity, and mystery. Tuck it in, shove it down my complex of inferiority. Serving the successful, not one of them. How do I become someone when I'm ashamed, even when I don't admit it, that I haven't done more with my life? Nightlife. The night of my life stretches on, and I've lost the fight, all the action, all the lights. I've never felt so dull and paralyzed. I can't breathe. Not sure if it's because this corset is too tight, but if I can just get through tonight. My self-worth like putty in the hands of everyone around me. Hakkasan floodlights in my eyes. Am I good enough? Do you want me? Dysmorphic duplicity. Can't trust what I see or anyone else, really. Music's off, feel a little crazy. Lights come on, feel some anxiety. Still 3,000 people around, but feel kind of lonely. Front of house. The cash, the injections, the lashes, tan extensions. Where would you stand? What would you say if it all stripped away? What are you made of and afraid of? What were you born to do today? I know, you can't really tell. Here, why don't you let me try? Let me try and help. Your glasses are fogged up, jaded, distorted, and faded. Maybe that's why you're tripping, always looking up over your shoulder. This is exhausting. Will you ever let them see? Not the cinched-in curves, contorted chameleon you believe you have to be. You're not perfect. No one is, never has, never will be. This is exhausting. Will you ever let them see? The contours of your mind, the angles of your soul, the spark in your eye. You know that shit that makes you whole. Front of house, back house, the bipolar, the someone, perfect metaphor. What are we here for? What do we do? Are we doing? Have we done? Succumb to depression. We hear things like, they're gone now, can't believe it. Never would have guessed. Yeah, no shit. For those who truly walk in the shadows, you become a professional at making your life look like perfection. Enough time curating an image, getting paid to engage. No matter how dark things are, how far out on the edge I am. She's got so much going on, so much to live for. Meanwhile, can hardly get herself to walk out her bedroom door. It's not how many people you're around. You can be lonely in the crowd. What we're calling family, denial, thinking we know, they'd know. We'd know, wouldn't we? We have to redefine this connection. Get raw and intimate, ask the tough questions, showing our imperfections and fears, and undo the damage of this duplistic presentation of our lives. Name it, bring it into the light. Shedding the stigma and shame and stop playing these games. And this work, it's happening. An overdue cultural transformation, but there's a fine line between glorification. I see people in the pendulum latching onto mental illness as an identity, like I'm this condition, this is what defines me. This is where I take a hard line. Forgive my detour for a moment while I venture into the controversial kind. See to me, above all else, your fellow human being. Above gender, race, sexuality, health, religion, ethnicity. The deepest core value beneath everything I do, every person has a soul with intrinsic and sacred value. Here's an example I'll give you. Why are you working in Africa when there's need here at home? I say I hold this little Ugandan child and feel as if he were one of my own 7 little brothers. Because above all of our differences, our shared humanity, that's what I see, not his identity. So my friend, my message from my darkness, from someone who's tried it, rather than define ourselves by mental illness or disguise, deny, or hide it, you're more capable and potential and strong than you can even imagine. Direct the chaos to create a better you, community, and planet. Especially us here in the U.S., the West, whatever your identity is, you're still in the top 1%. Freedom, economic, political, sexual, religious. Each choice you think is insignificant, a drop on barren ground. But there will be a day when that riverbed is a reflection of all your ways, that mirror staring back, and what do you want to see? Don't wait for an epiphany. There's need everywhere, and if you just put one fraction of the energy most of us do in a TikTok or IG, something will draw you in. Purpose, and specifically that is of service to someone and something bigger and beyond yourself, was my guiding light, my anchor. When I lost it, I sank under some deep waters. And it was that purpose that pulls me back to grace each time, back from turbulent waters, back to the sunshine. So give yourself some generous kindness. Don't let mental illness define you. Let it drive you, refine you, and shape the impact you'll leave on this world.
Dude. What?
Cameo.
That hit me in the core. Dude.
That was a 3 a.m. stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
And you almost didn't come today?
And I almost didn't
And
read
you
it.
almost didn't come today. Jesus, dude, that was
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
amazing, and like so.
Yeah.
Can we go to a poetry slam? Soon?
Yes,
Like, please, can we go? Because you need
Yes,
to
let's
jump
do
up
this.
instead of just coming with me. Can you like get up and?
Yeah, let's do it.
Jesus.
Do that one.
Yeah.
That was a way to.
We should
end
open
an
the episode
Like
like
I was
that.
gonna say, like, damn.
Just like this, the audio over.
Yeah, like we're gonna play that a lot if you're cool with it. Because like
Yeah.
that needs to be.
I mean,
its
it could
own-
definitely get some tightening up, but yeah.
Not yes and no, but I get where you're coming from on
Yeah.
the artistic and the poetry point. We always want to keep adding it,
Sure.
but like,
Yeah.
dude, that role was incredible.
Thanks. I feel like the message needs to be out there.
Well,
know?
you need to
like
speak it.
take your
Yeah.
eyes off yourself.
Well, you need to speak that message out there.
Yeah. Let's do it.
We appreciate you being on. And
Thank you
speaking
so
your
much
message
for
and telling us
having
me.
about
It was
It
a
was
true
incredible
honor.
having you. I love
Thank
you,
you.
and I greatly appreciate you as a
Likewise.
human being, friend, family. You've been an inspiration to me for quite some time.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so
being
much
here.
for
We
being
love you.
here.
We'll see you guys next time on A Chaos. Peace.